Exactly 2 decades ago, in 2005, physical media recorded its biggest ever year in terms of sales as far as it pertains to film, accruing over $15 billion in revenue from a combination of DVD and VHS releases. This peak came following a boom for the two home video formats during the 1990s, which presented affordable ways for moviegoers to take the theatrical experience home when it had once been out of reach and a bit of a luxury. It became a core pillar of the entertainment industry, extending the cultural footprint of box office smashes and giving a second life to those films that weren't as successful. Rental stores emerged as communal spaces in towns and cities. The whole ecosystem of cinema had been transformed within a few years. But as we all know, it wasn't to last. 20 years on, in 2025, the forecast for physical media is decidedly more, well, not good. Renting giant blockbuster collapsed over a decade ago, beaten and bloodied by the rise of streaming services like Netflix and Prime Video, while yearly headlines declare that the industry is dead or near enough close to it, thanks to a combination of streaming competition, shifting attitudes towards media consumption, the rise of video-on-demand premieres, and so on and so forth. We're also privy to the knock-on effects of this contraction, as hardware manufacturers shift attention away from 4K disc players, retailers shrink their physical media shelves, and Hollywood overall is forced to adapt to a reality where films now live and die in their opening weekends, as Matt Damon so eloquently explained in his appearance on Hot Ones in 2021. He's a real one. So yeah, the overall picture being developed from this isn't particularly rosy, and while I would be lying if I said the state of physical media overall is totally problem and /or worry-free, it would also be fair to say that all the hyperbole surrounding the topic isn't all that helpful. As the industry pertains to movies and TV, yeah, physical media is not as popular as it once was. However, it has proven far more adaptable than the bulk of mainstream commentary has intimated, shifting towards a collector-first model led by boutique brands, cinephiles, and scholars, meaning that for those who are investing in a 4K or Blu-ray collection right now, such as yours truly, things have never been better. Hey everyone, I'm Ewan, you're watching What Culture, and before I go any further and extol the virtues of Blu-rays and 4Ks as they exist today, I want to do a quick anecdote. About 6 years ago now, I had a bit of an epiphany. While I had grown up with physical media as a member of that hilarious in-between generation known as the Zillennials, waking up bleary-eyed on a Saturday morning to rewind my tapes of Batman the Animated Series, The Phantom Menace, and Independence Day, I'd come of age in the streaming era. Netflix came to the UK in the early 2010s, and so by the time that I got to uni, I was locked in. The cost-benefit payoff was really obvious. Pay a flat subscription fee and gorge on all the film and TV you could possibly want, as opposed to forking out dozens of pounds for a bumper box set that would also take up precious shelf space in a student hall. And for real, my flat in third year was like a box. I was living in a box. They based the song Living in a Box on me. They didn't do that, I'm lying. But yeah, it was the kind of logic millions of people also followed around that time, as convenience, choice, and instant gratification expedited the movie watching process, and the binge TV model took FOMO and spoiler-related anxiety to all new heights. We vacated the rental stores, sold our DVD players, and threw open the curtains to a neater, more seamless viewing experience. Except, no. That's not what happened at all. Steadily, over time, streaming didn't remain such a no-brainer. Shows and films came and went, algorithms became more pernicious, and controversies surrounding censorship, delistings, cancellations, price hikes, and so much more ignited a debate over the film and TV industry's digital transition and its various knock-on effects, especially as they relate to movie attendances, equitable industry compensation, and the nature of how we as people engage with the medium of cinema itself. It isn't clear how deeply these conversations have penetrated mainstream audiences, and I mean, presumably not that much given how Netflix, Disney, and Prime continue to record record viewing figures year on year, but one consequence is that physical media has taken on another kind of cultural cachet compared to its heyday, servicing primarily those film fans who are deeply invested in the medium, as well as those who have alerted to the lack that accompanies streaming in contrast to the DVDs they grew up with. All of the aforementioned, plus the untimely passing of my father in 2021, whose love for film was an ever-present in our relationship, galvanized me to reconsider my Blu-ray habits, and so I took a wander to my nearest HMV and had a gander. The first thing I was struck by was the array of collector's editions on offer, produced by independent labels like Criterion, Eureka, and 88 Films. One in particular stood out though, Arrow Video, a label with a focus on genre whose branding recollected a retro rental store feel. In and amongst the array of really cool cult horror titles was something that struck an instant chord. A collector's edition of a film that Dad had recommended to me but that I'd never gotten around to watching, Sam Peckinpah's Major Dundee. The box itself was adorned with the stunning watercolors of artist Tony Stella, while the edition itself included a new scan of the film, Stella's art as a full poster, a booklet of essays and complimentary material, and copious amounts of bonus features to delve into. The film itself is a brilliantly flawed masterpiece which you should absolutely watch if you're into westerns, but the viewing experience itself was uniquely cathartic, both as a reintroduction to the full-bodied, comprehensive engagement that comes with taking your relationship with the film beyond the end credits, and as a totemic item that made a lost loved one feel just a little bit closer. It was, in its own way, its own kind of therapy, and it consequently recalibrated my relationship with cinema. Full shelves felt less like a burden and more like a comforting library, a reflection of my own filmic tastes and personality, and one that could be negotiated on my terms rather than an algorithm's. Streaming still had a function, but it was once again supplementary, not foundational, to my navigation of film and the history of film. A process further galvanized by an increasingly expanding Letterboxd watch list and the gradually stagnating libraries the various streamers had to offer. All the while, labels like Criterion and Arrow continued to announce and release gorgeous 4K restorations of classics and cult faves alike. At the risk of all of that coming across as incredibly self-indulgent, I do think it serves an important context. There is a tangible emotional quality that comes with physicality, and one that has become more pronounced in the digital age. Think of physical media as another facet of people, primarily young adults, renegotiating their digital existence after coming of age in the social media and streaming era. First, there was the resurgence of vinyl, and more recently, the re-emergence of film photography. On a pure, fundamental level, it feels like people are coming to terms with the impact of convenience and the erosion of all the little rituals that played a key part in our connection with art and memory. Not to equate consumption with protest or resistance or anything like that, but engaging in these hobbies does also feel like a bit of a declarative statement against the notion of art as content, as well as a small reclamation of a way of engaging with media in general, giving the time, space, and energy to something so that it can actually sink into your pores, as opposed to it being disposed of on a commute or simple background viewing. It's not that there's anything wrong with engaging with art semi-passively, because Lord knows Spotify Premium has been there for me when I have to suffer on the Time and Wear Metro every day, but rather that the method of delivery itself is important, and that when we devote the appropriate amount of time and respect to art, we're ultimately left with a more gainful experience. As far as film goes, 4K Blu-rays are a great pathway to achieving exactly that. The emotional case for physical media is one I find uniquely compelling, but so too are the technical and economic arguments. Year on year, streaming services have upped their prices. This is in part to sustain the development of new original productions to keep people invested in their platforms, with exclusives a key way of differentiating themselves from the competition. However, the quality of these original shows and films varies massively, and for every David Fincher-directed banger like Mindhunter or The Killer, you end up with like 5 of The Grey Man or He's All That. Disposable slop that gets shunted into the trough with the same level of care and attention as something more prestige like Martin Scorsese's The Irishman. It's like we're that guy in Saw 3 and we're just getting drowned in pig carcasses and just want to reach out for something good, but you can't because you keep on getting attacked by the algorithm and it never stops. It's a bad time. Unexpected Saw analogy aside, the cost of all this is further exacerbated by the tendency for streaming libraries to rarely extend their reach past 1980. Classics get forgotten, and the same familiar stable of 90s and 2000s hits are recycled over and over. Granted, this issue proves less glaring when you have multiple subscriptions to mix and match, but the point remains that these services have constructed an extremely narrow window for audiences to engage with the medium, and, in the process, inhibited the sense of discovery that was part and parcel of pre-streaming models. There are reasons why catching a film on TV by surprise, or better yet, perusing a retailer and finding something new and tangible, hits so different. It's a process that stands in stark contrast to the convenience and familiarity the biggest streaming platforms have come to depend on. Like, seriously, how many times have you found yourself logging onto Netflix or Prime just to aimlessly scroll? Whereas if you're on TV, you find a movie and go, hey, I like that, let's put it on. It is perhaps that search for safety that has also led to a worrying impulse from streaming services like Netflix and Disney Plus to censor titles in their library. Episodes from popular TV sitcoms like Community have been delisted for fear of causing offense, while Disney's antics have ranged from the hilariously prudish to the downright vandalistic, whether that be hiding Daryl Hannah's butt with CGI hair in Splash, or accusations that it was behind the removal of a piece of dialogue in William Friedkin's The French Connection, where lead Popeye Doyle, played by Gene Hackman, uses a racial epithet in casual conversation. Even if the vast majority of films are preserved on streaming censorship-free, the willingness from these services to tamper with their libraries demonstrates that they're just piss-poor custodians. Physical media doesn't entirely circumvent this issue either, as new printings may also run the risk of censorship, but older discs, if they're not out of print, are easily acquirable, and even with a 1080p Blu-ray, offer a superior audiovisual presentation compared to digital formats. 4K players will actively upscale 1080p Blu-ray discs, while 4K streams will always suffer from some kind of compression that makes them inferior to native 4K Ultra HD discs. Physical releases also don't carry the risk of inconsistent subtitles or sudden delistings. In short, when you buy the disc, you're getting the superior package. Not that there aren't pitfalls, of course. Navigating different restorations, editions, and cuts of different films can be a minefield, especially when it comes to conversations around film grain, digital noise reduction, and so on. But at least there are options. On streaming, you get what you're given, whether it's a Frankensteined recolorization of a black and white classic, or the rubbery, AI-laden restorations James Cameron has been going whole hog on in recent years. We're paying for a buffet, but the selection, most of the time, is like lukewarm and really unappealing. Now, I know there'll be those of you out there who will point to the fact that even with ballooning costs, that streaming still presents a cheaper alternative to amassing a physical library of films and TV shows, as well as the fact that film-first services like Mubi, BFI Player, and the Criterion Channel provide what the big streamers do not. But value is subjective. Even if forking out cash for fancy limited editions or just average ordinary Blu-rays is objectively more expensive than paying a yearly fee for Disney Plus, physical editions, especially those produced by boutique labels like Arrow, provide more bang for your buck, including a bevy of complementary material that's absent from all the streaming platforms. Interviews, commentaries, essays, and thoughtful physical collectibles are all rolled into that price as well. The experience overall is just way more comprehensive. Not to mention the lifetime value of being able to rewatch a film at your leisure, however many times you please. It's undeniable that the Blu-ray and DVD market has experienced a stark contraction as streaming increases in popularity, but rumors of its demise have been greatly exaggerated. Each year, Netflix boasts of its platform adding tens of millions of users despite clampdowns on password sharing and decisions to raise the price of its tiered subscriptions. At the same time, retailers like Target in the United States have withdrawn or drastically scaled back their Blu-ray sections, while the pace of new 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray players being manufactured by companies like Sony has also slackened. Oh, and there's also disc rot too. Can't forget about disc rot, an issue that will literally affect only a tiny percentile of disc owners who store their collection in the bog caves of Swampsville. Defo a real problem though. It's not. The non-issue of disc rot aside, cumulatively, this does paint a fairly despondent picture for the physical media market, particularly when you dwell on how Hollywood has also constricted in variety as the popularity of home releases has declined. Again, thank you, Matt Damon. But while the rise of streaming has left the medium worse off, the overall nicheification of this particular industry facet has ironically resulted in something of a golden age for hobbyists. As the big home video arms of companies like Disney and Paramount take their foot off the gas, boutique labels have stepped in to deliver better products, which in turn has also led some of those aforementioned big companies to up their game as well. Since the advent of the 4K Ultra HD format, cinephiles have been treated to a smorgasbord of restorations of movie classics, giving us our best window yet into how these films looked when they were actually first screened. The difference in visual fidelity, color vibrancy, and depth of audio between the Blu-ray of Howard Hawks' Rio Bravo and its 2023 4K release, to use just one example, is night and day, while similar restorations of John Ford's The Searchers and David Lean's The Bridge on the River Kwai have also put their previous releases to shame. Even as the audience of physical media has absolutely shrunken, these new restorations, many of which are created alongside directors themselves, given they're actually alive, are reinvigorating familiar classics to a truly transformative degree, a process further buoyed by the revival of rep cinemas, which showcase many of these 4K restorations on the big screen to maximum effect. And gotta shout out the Tyneside Cinema because they do that all the time, and it's the best place to be. Love the Tyneside. But Ewan, I hear you say. 4K is a format that people can also enjoy digitally, so what about physical media in particular is adding to the package? Well, apart from the aforementioned lack of compression that comes with using a disc, I think the best way of demonstrating what makes the format so strong is to pick out a few releases from my collection that best exemplify all those lovely little bonuses I was going on about before. Is this a glorified case of adult show and tell? Yes. Do I feel guilty about it? No. Not really, no. Right, okay, the first I want to start off with here is the collector's edition of The Hitcher done by Second Sight. Like Arrow, Second Sight is a UK-based company that specializes in limited edition packages of genre cinema. And as with Arrow again, a lot of its catalog is primarily centered around the horror genre. I'm gonna chalk that up as some kind of response to the video nasty controversies Britain endured in the 80s and 90s, so take this as some kind of ironic rebalancing of the cosmic scales that we're now the boutique horror capital of the world. But the cool thing about it is that both brands feel of a piece with that retro video rental culture, and that relationship, whether tacit or explicit, has led to dozens of cult genre classics getting bespoke 4K treatments. As you can tell, they're just real labors of love, and Second Sight's 4K of The Hitcher is a testament to that. Featuring custom artwork by Adam Stothard, a 200-page book of interviews, essays, and behind-the-scenes photography, and a printing of the full original script by Eric Red, this is what I'm referring to when I say that physical media is in a golden generation. The 4K restoration itself is just completely stunning too, supervised by the film's director, Robert Harmon. It's so good, in fact, that I initially bought the Blu-ray, watched that, was blown away, and then had to go out and get the 4K. It helps, of course, that The Hitcher is itself an incredible movie, one of the cult masterpieces of the 80s, but what made my affection for it even greater was the collective package provided by the physical release. It was basically the perfect springboard to dive into a Hitcher-themed abyss of thematic analysis and behind-the-scenes insight. You really could not ask for more. Another amazing UK-based label is 88 Films, which is a bit of a genre virtuoso, covering everything from Hong Kong martial arts cinema to drama and horror. Some of my favorites of theirs include the underrated Jackie Chan, Shu Qi, and Brad Allen starring Gorgeous, Stuart Gordon's cult classic Lovecraft adaptation From Beyond, featuring the brilliant Jeffrey Combs and Barbara Crampton, and lastly, John Sayles' 1987 opus Matewan, a film everyone needs to see at least once in their life, and which has been lovingly restored and repackaged by 88. Then there is the previously mentioned Arrow Video, whose catalogue spans from obscure cult cinema to mainstream Hollywood fare. The limited editions are always worth the price of admission, especially when they feature art from Tony Stella. Combined with that retro logo and theming, Arrow is basically a delicious vibe all around, as are other UK labels like Indicator and Eureka Entertainment, the latter of which is truly doing the Lord's work with its Masters of Cinema series, which collects essential classics from filmmakers like Billy Wilder and Fritz Lang, to name just two off the top of my head. And of course, there's the daddy of the boutique label scene, Criterion. Criterion's packages may lack physical goodies, but they make up for that with sheer authority and presentation. The brand is also at the forefront of restoration and the cultural conversation surrounding films at home, with the Criterion Closet a physical media mecca for hobbyists and a fantastic advertisement for the pastime in general, with actors, directors, and other industry figures being invited to the closet to take home a goodie bag and just have a low-key chat about the films they're choosing. Apart from being just killer viral marketing, these videos basically epitomize the forgotten catharsis of the video store experience. The tangibility, the shared conversation, that sense of memory and discovery. Put simply, they're a conduit for community, and while social media should pick up the slack for that, in theory, no. There's a fundamental grass-touching component that has been steadily eroded here, and now what we're left with is glimpses like this. It's a really sad irony that physical media's golden age has coincided with the decline of spaces like the video store. But at the same time, without their absence, the lack, would that need to innovate and distinguish from the main mode of consumption have been there? Probably. I mean, most of the labels mentioned have been going since the 1990s. But by sheer virtue of the streamers failing to meet the emotional and technical qualities audiences had once grown accustomed to, their boons are rendered in stark technicolor. It might not be enough to stop our myriad hobbies from being stuffed into a digital box, or for Netflix and Disney Plus to add another couple of million subscribers to their coffers by the time this video finally wraps up, but maybe posing the question is all that's really needed. Either way, physical media, as it pertains to movies, is not dying. Is it less popular than it used to be? Well, duh, obviously, and one would argue that's to the detriment of the industry as a whole. Again, thank you, Matt Damon. Let alone the idea of film as a place of shared experience and community beyond the cinema. But despite all that, it's thriving in its own way. At no other point in home media's existence has there been as many films available to watch, where we can expect a cult movie like Tremors 2 Aftershocks to get as loving a 4K restoration as something like Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation. We have, quite literally, never had it so good. Bittersweet though it may be, to have all this goodness come along after the streaming blob has asserted its dominance. Now, to be clear, this isn't an argument about swearing streaming off altogether. There is, of course, an inherent value for money aspect to these services that, even with inflation, makes them an attractive prospect. Fancy 4Ks are a premium product, but sales are regular and 1080p Blu-rays still have a reasonable entry point as far as pricing goes. It's not about completely substituting one method for the other, but rather potentially affording space to a format and letting back in the idea that space in your home is there to be used. What I'm getting at here is that there's a difference between complementary pieces in a home and generic stuff that just clutters things up, like those terrible, evil novelty popcorn buckets, which I just want to put on a big bonfire and destroy because they really make me angry. But I digress, because we're not here to talk about popcorn buckets. For now. What I'm actually trying to say here is that while we accept that books and artwork have a place in the home, in the frenzy to get streaming and do our best, I don't want to play with you anymore Toy Story 2 moment, disc-based media has seemed to become quite novelty. I know DVDs and VHS tapes could be garish, but again, looking back over the last decade of physical media specifically, what we have now are legitimate display pieces that reflect the personality of the buyer. If it's a green flag to walk into someone's house and see a well-stocked bookshelf, then surely the same should apply to films. Taste depending, obviously, because, you know, there are bad movies too, and if you have some really bad movies on your shelf, I'm probably just gonna turn around and leave. But yeah, ultimately, it's a question of value. While there is a beneficial place for streaming in the industry ecosphere thing, it lends a transient quality to what are essentially cultural artifacts. And yes, I am including Scooby-Doo and Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed when I say that. That lack of permanence and the idea of disposability, of background viewing, second screen habits, and algorithmic attempts to shunt you from the end credits to something else at the earliest convenience, is antithetical to a healthy viewing experience. Each time those end cards get minimized, or you're greeted to an annoying little pop-up telling you to skip a TV show's banger intro, it's a big tell that these businesses just aren't invested in the art of storytelling. There's a lack of respect afforded to the craft, whereas with the boutique labels especially, it's very clearly the opposite. Look, I know movies have always been a business, and so too obviously is physical media. But by devoting the time and energy to these films, what we essentially have is a refutation of the tech-led industry consensus of art as content. It's a small act of rebellion, granted, but it's enough to stake survival on and perhaps, long-term, remind everyone why we fell in love with cinema in the first place. It's not meant to be a time filler or a distraction. It's a ritual, and one worth practicing. But I want to hear your thoughts on physical media down in the comments below. Do you have a collection? I'd love to see it. You can reach out to me on Blue Sky and show me if you want to. And if you don't, have I maybe convinced you to maybe get back into the hobby? I don't know. Hopefully I have, but if not, I hope you enjoyed the video regardless. I've been Ewan, this is What Culture, and I will hopefully see you next time. Bye.